Good Good evening. I'd like to call to order our meeting for this evening. We do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Okay, let's proceed to,
We're gonna make some
oh, I'm
announcements
sorry.
first.
Yes,
That's
a
all
little
right.
anxious. I'm sorry.
Just a few quick announcements before we begin. The board met in executive session to discuss questions of law related to this evening's applications prior to this this meeting. Excuse me. As for some meeting procedures, for everybody present tonight who is not an applicant, their attorney, or any of their witnesses, there are two ways to participate in this evening's proceedings. The first is public comment. At the end of each application, we'll give an opportunity for the residents to make public comment. Public comment consists of statements in support or in opposition to the relief requested. If you feel that you are particularly affected by the relief requested on an application, by proximity to the location or some other type of interest, we will give an opportunity at the beginning of each hearing to request what is called party status. Party status is an elevated form of participation that allows you to participate more fully in the hearing, ask questions of the applicant's witnesses, present testimony and evidence of your own, receive a copy of the board's written decision when issued, and if you disagree with the decision of the board, take an appeal to the Court of Common Pleas. If you anticipate desiring party status for any of the applications this evening, there is a form up on the front table that we would ask you to fill out that has your name and contact information so that we can ensure that we are able to reach out to you on any matters related to the application that you were taking interest in. That is it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Let's begin with item 12-1 of 23, application of Maria Gutierrez for a variance from section 55039B to place a 6-foot fence in the front yard. Property address is 312 Prospect Avenue, Seacane, PA, RC1 Residential District in the Second Council District.
Is Ms. Gutierrez here? Can you come forward, please? You go up to the microphone. Do you have an attorney with you tonight? Oh, sir. Please come forward. You're Ms. Gutierrez's attorney?
Yeah, I was. I retired about a month ago, and so I'm here as her agent.
Okay,
And I'll, in order to be as brief as possible, under 5 minutes.
okay.
I mean, I've tried over 1,000 cases. So, I would like to present the testimony, have her authenticate it, and then have her docket it. A lot faster.
That's
Lot
fine.
faster.
Just give me just 1 second.
Sure.
Is there anybody present this evening who, did you read the notice already? Okay, sorry. Is there anybody present this evening who is interested in party status for application 12-1? Okay, seeing none, the board will enter the following.
This is the owner and my client.
Just 1 second. The board will enter the following exhibits. ZHB 1 will be the application packet. ZHB 2 will be the proof of posting. And ZHB 3 will be the notice photos. Sir, you can proceed.
I'd like to hand up these folders, if I may.
Can I have your name, please?
Pardon?
Your name, please?
William G. Schwartz, SCHWARTZ. And it's, the address is 604 South View Court, West Grove, PA 19390. All right. This is the top one with the little O is the original, and it has the original photos in color. Yeah, bring them up. Jonathan, do you swear in or?
Well, so are you, we're going to authenticate your testimony through your client, correct?
We can both be sworn in now if you wish.
Let's swear them both in as well.
Can you both raise your right hands, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Okay, just stand here. May it please the board. Doesn't help. My name is William G. Schwartz. Been a lawyer for 58 years. Tried over 1,000 zoning cases. And what I propose today is to provide evidence and give testimony to shorten the allotted time, and to have my client authenticate it and adopt it as her own at the conclusion. So if I may, I've given everyone here the copy of a packet of documents. And in the documents, you will find the appeal as filed with the plot plan that was prepared for this case. There are photographs of the postings, which has already been provided to Upper Darby L&I and approved. In addition, there's a copy of the deed to this property, which my client here owns, Maria Gutierrez. And there are other photographs there of 4 other properties, residential properties, within 1 block of the subject, and they all have the same fence, the vinyl 6-foot fence. They're within 1 block of the subject. There's also a photograph of the residence immediately across the street from my client, which has a vinyl fence. My client acquired the property in 2021, and a fence, you built that? You built the fence? Yeah. My client built the fence that you see in the photograph of the property in the side yard and the rear yard. And that was before a permit was required or a variance was required in 2021. In 2022, an ordinance was passed which required that any fencing in the front yard in an RC1 requires a variance from this board. This fence is asked for security and privacy reasons. And again, it is identical to the other 5 fences that you see in the other photographs within 1 block of the subject. It will not impede traffic in any way. The address will be right on the outside at the front entrance to the property. There's no barbed wire or razor, anything. It'll be set back 1 foot from the roadway. And at this time, I would ask that my client, Maria Gutierrez, Maria, have you heard everything that I've said? Do you understand everything that I've
Yes,
said?
I do.
Do you authenticate it as true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief?
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes.
Yes? And do you adopt it as your own testimony?
Yes.
Thank you. Questions?
I'm sorry, when was the fence installed? When was the fence installed?
When was it?
Installed.
Oh, when did you install the fence?
2021.
Which is the year before a variance was required.
Question for the zoning officer. Was a fence permitted in this location in 2021?
Yeah, so actually I had worked with Mrs. Gutierrez and showing her where the fence could and could not go, which was the procedure for before we had the fence permit, which is a relatively new law.
Well, we're talking about the current fence was erected in 2021, right? That
Right.
sits behind the existing home?
Yes,
And all of the other
This is not,
fences-
there's, the fence that she's asking for tonight has not been built.
All of the other fences were also built before the ordinance as well.
I'll let the board ask some questions, and then I can continue with my questions. Unless the board would like me to ask some questions first. Let's- Bob, it's up, I mean, it's your board, so if you're ready.
I don't have questions at this time.
Okay. So some clarifying questions. So we can recognize that the existing portion of the fence was constructed prior to any regulation of fence on the property.
That is correct, sir.
But the proposed fence is governed by the current ordinance.
Correct.
Okay. So, so all of that aside, can you elaborate on the hardship that would require the board to approve a variance to extend this fence that is not currently permitted by the ordinance?
Yes, on the hardship, it would be because of security and privacy reasons. That is the hardship that is presented. There is no reason why she should not have the protection and the privacy. My client was in a bank robbery about a month ago in line when the robber in front of her robbed the bank. And it's just another reason why she needs this kind of protection, extra protection. And it's unique to the property. It's not against the public interest, clearly, when you see the other properties having the same fence.
When you state that the other properties have the same fence, I believe in the pictures you shared, all of those properties are all of those fences are located behind the house, are they not?
Oh, no, they're not. If you look closely, you'll see that the fence across the street is in front of the house. And on photographs, the first photograph, the fence is in front of the house on the street. On the second photograph, it's in front of the house on the street. You can see that on the photographs.
Sir, with all due respect, I have the original folder here, and there's two pictures. One shows a house with a partial stone front with the fence only enclosing the rear yard. And the second picture shows a blue fence, a blue house located as house opposite the subject Prospect Avenue. And that fence appears to be located behind the front building line of the house. So there's no example here of another house that is located, fences located within front of the house. Sure. No, I didn't see that.
Here's a photograph of a fence that is in the front of the house on the right.
Okay.
And there's another one that also shows that as well. This one has just a little setback that's in front of the house. And that one is also on the right. There are three of them.
I didn't realize they were stapled together. Question for the zoning officer, and I don't know if you have a copy of this in front of you.
Yes.
Are you aware of any, if any of these fences, well, one of the fourth picture in this stack looks like it's located on the non-address side of the house, which we permitted under the ordinance, the brick house. Correct.
I have that as the third picture, but I believe so, assuming, I don't know the address of that house. Assuming it's with the front door, then yes.
Are you aware of any of these fences that have received relief from this board?
Not to my knowledge.
Are Are you aware if any of these fences were erected after the change in the ordinance?
That I wouldn't be able to tell you, but not to my knowledge. Yeah, because I don't recall reviewing any of these.
I think I can speak for the board briefly and say that I'm sorry, Mrs. Gutierrez, that you experienced such a traumatic incident as being present for a bank robbery. And I'm sure that is very distressing and very disheartening to hear that happen to you. I think what the board needs to hear is to the township council has determined that a fence in the front yard in the RC district on the address side of the house is not within the public policy of this township. So the board needs to hear a particular reason as to why the front of your property needs to be enclosed with a fence. And if there's anything you or your attorney, your agent can offer on that, I think it would be helpful for the board to hear.
As I've already stated, this use of the fence is unique to the property for her protection and privacy. It is also the same as other fences in the neighborhood. For that reason, those reasons, it's clear that there's an unnecessary hardship here as to this applicant for her property.
No. I don't see it. Agree with you. Should we go into an executive session?
They're against fences. File an appeal.
Yeah.
Turn my microphone on. Are there any other questions from the board?
None.
Do you have anything else to offer, Mr. Schwartz?
Pardon?
Do you have anything else to offer?
No, sir.
Let me ask for public comment.
Is there any public comment?
Okay.
None.
See-
Since there are no, we're going to go into executive session. Okay, so after reviewing the information presented before us, I'd like to make a motion that we deny this application. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. You will receive a notice in 45 days
Yes.
in reference to the decision. Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
They turn it down? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You'll send out the notice? Randall?
Your written decision will be issued within 45 days.
Okay, our next application is application 12-2 of 23. Craig Kissinger and Mark Brown for a variance from 550-39B1 to permit a front yard stone border and 550-39B3 to permit the border to be 0 feet from the street right-of-way. Location of the property is 326 Maple Avenue in Drexel Hill. That's an R1 residential district in the 5th Council District.
Before we begin tonight, we'll see if, is there anybody present this evening who is requesting party status for application 12-2? Okay, seeing none, the board will enter the following exhibits. ZHB1 will be the application packet, ZHB2 will be the notice photos, and ZHB3 will be the proof of publication. Mr. Kissinger?
Brown.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Mr. Kissinger is
Went to
sick.
the first name.
Yeah.
So, please proceed.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth,
I do. So thank you very much for hearing for this variance. I did bring a couple of additional pieces of information, if I may.
So I'll note that the first item handed up is a petition. The board does not accept petitions for people who aren't present. So we'll note that you have a petition that is signed, but we don't accept them as evidence.
Okay.
So, but thank you. We can take pictures, absolutely. Thank you.
So this proposed border wall is 18 inches in height, so 1.5 feet. I realize that we're asking for a variance, that it's right up against the sidewalk. We did find a couple of examples in the neighborhood of walls and fences that abut the sidewalk. May I give you those as well? Yep. And just to state that we did engage our neighbors and discuss the project, and we had nearly 40 signatures of folks who were in support of the project. Did you have any
So
particular
Can
questions?
you describe the project a little more and why you feel it necessary to place the wall where it's
Sure.
proposed?
Sure. The wall is being proposed for the front of our property, honestly, to curb some dogs from wandering into the yard, amongst other things, but also as a neighborhood improvement for aesthetics, to finish off the front of the house, which was remodeled approximately 3 years ago.
We'll mark the proposed pictures as A1, and we'll mark the neighborhood example photos as A2. It'd be appropriate if the board has any questions.
Your decision to build the wall, why was that?
For aesthetics and to finish off the front of the house, we had actually put a plastic fence up temporarily along the sidewalk to try to curb the dogs from wandering into the yard. But ultimately, we wanted something that would be a little more permanent and aesthetically pleasing than a plastic fence that we picked up at Home Depot.
Do you intend to put anything on top of that?
No, sir.
Do you have anything else you'd like to offer the board?
Not at this time, thank you.
You can ask for public comment.
Is there any public comment? Yes. Let's please come up.
It's up to you. Sir, if you can state your name and then we'll have you sworn in.
My name is Norman Janes, last name is Janes. I live at 327 Maple Avenue, across the street from,
Sir, we're going to
Craig and
have you
Mark.
sworn in.
yes,
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I so affirm. I must confess that I find it strange that there is evidently a rule which says that you can't have an 18-foot stone fence in front of your house. But maybe there is some reason, but I can't think of what it would be. It doesn't block the view. It doesn't impede any line of sight. People will know what the house number is, and I can't imagine how it offends or hurts or interferes in the quality of life in the neighborhood. In fact, I think that Mark is right, that this will probably enhance the quality of the neighborhood. And as he said, 40 of the neighbors agree that there is no offense and that it really makes no sense that he wouldn't be permitted to do this. I wonder whether part of the reason for the rule has to do with aesthetics. And if that's true, then I'm dismayed that the Township of Upper Darby would try to legislate aesthetics. I happen to be a progressive, liberal progressive of political persuasion, and I think that's a great deal what the township and the county and the state and the federal government could do to improve the health and safety and welfare and general well-being of its citizens. But limiting and controlling and determining aesthetics is not among them. Thank you very much for your time.
Is there any other public comments? Okay, there being none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Good luck, Mr. Brown. We'll get
Thank
you
you
a
very
written
much.
decision within 45 days.
Thank you.
Okay, our next application of Denisa James Green for variances from section 550-44C2 to permit enclosure of the existing front porch. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you have a card that you can give me? I can reach out to you.
You can certainly reach out through Josh.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, I'm just going to pick up from continuing. I believe I said 550-44C2 to permit enclosure of the front yard, I'm sorry, to permit enclosure of the existing front porch in section 550-15D, table 4.2, to permit an encroachment of 9 feet into the required front yard. Location of property is 439 Copley Road in Upper Darby. It's an R3 residential district in the 6th Council District.
Hi.
Aye.
Just
It's-
one second. Courtney or Josh, would one of you mind closing the hallway doors just so we? Is there anybody present? Thank you, Mr. McCreesh. Courtney, I think you were saved by a chivalrous man. Is there anybody present this evening who'd like to request party status for application 12-3? Okay. Seeing none, the board will enter the following exhibits. ZHB 1 will be the application packet, ZHB 2 will be the notice photos, and ZHB 3 will be the proof of publication. You can proceed
Yes,
if you don't
hi.
mind introducing yourselves, and we'll have you sworn in.
My name is Rick Yeager. I am the contractor doing the proposed work at YEAGER.
Denisa James, James.
Can you both raise your right hands, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth?
I do. Yeah, my name again is Rick Yeager. I'm the contractor will be doing the enclosure on the front of the James home. And speaking as far as everything goes with this, I wanted to pass out a couple.
Mr. Yeager, while we do that, since Ms. James is representing herself, Ms. James, can we start with just asking you if you can state for the board why you want to enclose your front porch?
Well, it's get a lot of mosquitoes, bugs. I just want to sit out there and enjoy my porch. I get a lot of squirrels, so I like to enclose it to avoid all of that.
And would you like your contractor, Mr. Yeager, to offer some more testimony on your behalf?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Yeager.
Thank you. Yeah, just to proceed, again, we're looking to enclose the existing front porch or roof. There's an existing roof structure that is there on the front, and it is going to be enclosed underneath the existing roof. At this point, as far as the setback, there wasn't a setback on the denial letter that we received. But as far as the setback is, I believe the setback is 10 feet for an R3. And the current roof is 11.77 feet from the property line. So I don't know if that really applies here. If it does, obviously we'll ask for relief from that as well.
You're asking for two variances, one to enclose the existing porch, because enclosed porches aren't permitted in this district, on attached homes. And then you're also asking for an encroachment of 9 feet into the required front yard.
And that's what I was just talking about, is I don't believe it's going to encroach on the front yard setback.
Do you believe the porch is entirely beyond the setback line?
Right now,
As it
the
exists?
existing roof structure is 11.77 feet from the front property line.
So I can kind of provide some clarity on why that is here as well. So under, our table of permitted uses, section, 5, or not permitted uses, under our development standards for the R-3, under single-family attached dwellings, there are 2 asterisks for the minimum front yard. So if you were doing a new build, it would be 20 feet back from the property line. This isn't a new build, so there's 2 asterisks. So we follow those asterisks down to the bottom of the page, and it has this paragraph. When, as a result of the construction of a building, the building line is established at a distance greater than that of the minimum required front and/or rear yard in the district. The minimum required front and/or rear yard shall thereafter be the distance from the front of the property to the building line. So what that essentially says is, when, right, this new ordinance came to pass, where the existing front of the building became, right, the ultimate, became the new setback.
Okay.
So, right, the porch is technically 9 feet into that setback, so it would just be getting enclosed what's already there.
I was looking at the online requirements.
Yeah.
And under R3, it said 10 feet.
So I think
So
you
we'll
can,
go
you
ahead
can
and
present
request
that as
relief
part of
from
your,
that as well. Yes.
you can present that as part of your argument, and,
Yes.
but we'll certainly note that the porch is existing in front of, the unenclosed porch is existing in front of the established building line for this property.
Yes. And it actually lines up in line with most of the other properties, as you can see with the pictures I just handed up, have front porches on them as well. So it's not going to stand out as anything different on the block. As far as Ms. Jones said, James, I'm sorry, said the reason for this is to be able to enjoy the outdoors without being bit by the mosquitoes and bothered by the squirrels and whatnot that are out there. The front yard is realistically the only place that makes sense. For one reason, the roof is already there, and we're just going to enclose underneath the existing roof. The only other place that could be added to on the home is in the back, and the back of the home backs up to a shared alleyway, which can't be impeded on at all, otherwise it'll impede traffic in the shared alleyway. So anyway, it's really, as I see it, a reasonable request to just be able to enclose that front porch. And as you can see by the other pictures that I handed up, you will see there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 houses with some type of enclosure on the front, be it anything from a brick wall to windows to, painted plywood. And we're going to be enclosing this with a nice aesthetic. It's going to be aluminum frame with screen cloth, aluminum screen. And in as far as to just enclose the existing area to keep the pests away.
When you say enclosed, is it just screening you're putting up?
Right now, yes, it's going to be a screened enclosure, yes. I will tell you, quite frankly, that it is upgradable to, to be honest, it is upgradable to be enclosed with single pane, safety tempered glass.
But no siding, no stone, no boards, no...
No, it's just aluminum framing. There will be some knee walls because obviously there's the railing up there and there's a safety issue for, fall protection and all for guard protection. So there will be a bottom section that'll be, prevent people from falling off.
As in a rail, or will it be a solid?
The bottom section is a panel knee wall, yeah.
So I'm trying to envision what you're describing. So are you saying the bottom section would be a solid something for
Solid white.
support to hold
Yep.
the, I guess,
And then
the post for the screening?
And then the framing for the screen would be in between the posts.
And would there be a door to this?
Yeah,
to
there will be a
enter?
door going out where the existing exit is on the side going in. There's a shared side entrances from each porch.
So, Mr. Hager, can you just wait until the board members finish their questions? Because otherwise it makes it very difficult for our court reporter to capture all the testimony.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And one more question around, so it's not a security type thing, it's just for enclosure, the hardship would be the mosquitoes to keep, and to enjoy the outdoors without being, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
and that there's no other place to do it realistically.
Is there any plan for any heating or air conditioning?
None.
No. No.
Do you have a rear area, or is that parking out back?
There, behind, there's garage, so I usually park, sometime I'll park in front, behind the garage.
You have an alley behind you.
It-
Yeah, there's a shared alleyway behind that row of homes.
I have no further questions.
So I just have one question regarding the porch. Is it unusable in its current state?
No.
Just for the fact that she, the family is bothered by, they're bit by mosquitoes and the squirrels are coming up and digging up her flowers and stuff that are on the porch and.
Okay. Can we go to executive session?
Sure, after public comment.
After public comment. Thank you.
Is there any public comment? Okay, there being none, we're just going to take a break.
One thing if I could just say, and point out again, there are other homes on this block that are already, the front porch is already enclosed.
Okay,
All right.
noted. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with the following condition, that the space remains an outdoor space without any type of climate control added to it.
That is the way, yes, absolutely.
Do I get it?
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good
Thank you.
luck.
Thank you.
In the meantime, this is something that.
Oh, thank
They
you.
wanted pictures.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
You'll receive a written decision within 45 days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Good night.
Okay. Our next application of Barlow Quality LLC for a variance from section 558A to permit a banquet facility event space in the C1 zoning district, a variance from section 558B to permit two principal uses on the same lot, and a special exception pursuant to section 550-33C1B to permit shared parking and a 25% reduction in the amount of required parking spaces. The location is 8045 Westchester Pike, Upper Darby. It's a C1 commercial district in the 4th Council District.
Is there anyone present this evening who is interested in party status for this application? Seeing none, the board will enter the following exhibits. ZHB1 will be the application packet, ZHB2 will be the notice photos, and ZHB3 will be the proof of publication. Mr. McCreesh IV, the floor is
Yes.
yours.
Thank you, thank you. What did you get, two of these?
Yeah, two of
Okay. He put together a little package with some pictures, that kind of professional. I don't think you have this yet, I don't know if you need this reworded, the bank letter with the shared parking. I don't know.
All right, we'll mark the photo book as A1. We'll mark as A2 a letter from ESSA, ESSA Bank and Trust, dated 12/15/23, related to shared parking. I think we might have some questions about the letter, but we'll mark it so that it's included.
All right. Thank you. John McCreesh IV, attorney ID 68944, represent, it's Barlow Quality LLC. I don't pronounce the G, but, and this is Mr. Harry Quia. Can you spell your name for the court reporter?
It's Harry, Harry, last name is Quiah.
And and what's your address?
Address is 151 South Bishop Avenue.
Bishop.
Bishop Avenue.
Is that
Apartment 821, Seeking,
Seeking? Okay.
Pennsylvania.
And-
Zip code is 1901.
And you're the principal member of the LLC?
Yes.
Sure, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yes.
Okay, so I think you know this building. It's the ESSA Bank right up on Westchester Pike. The bank used to use both floors, and since COVID and the pandemic, a lot of the banks have downsized, so they have the second space. And Mr. Kia wants to open a banquet facility. He'll do mostly small events, maybe from 50 to 100 people. They'll bring in their own catering. There's no cooking or kitchen on the premises. They do have a refrigerator. Most of these events, or all the events, will be at night, or mostly, or maybe a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, like a kid's party, or or wedding reception or something like that, but it won't be at the same time when the bank is open, and that's why the bank has put in that shared parking agreement, because there's not really going to be any overlap in when he's doing business and when the bank's doing business. Do you have anything, you want to tell the board anything else about the operation? How many employees you're going to have, your hours, or?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to be here. We are looking forward to be involved within the community, because we believe a banquet hall is not only going to be used for, also it's going to be used for the community services. So we look forward to working with the township, how best we can improve the community. I have a consultant here. If you allow her, she will be able to add more information to our process, what we want to do.
You want her to?
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. Well, she'll testify real quickly. She's one of the, like a manager, and she has a separate business that she's been running. If you want to state your name and spell it for the court.
Natasha White, Natasha White. I do. So I've been mentoring Mr. Harry, and I do have an event space in Delaware County. I act as a wedding and event planner. So the book I put together there explains the different types of events that I host and that I do. Small events, weddings, baby showers, seminars, first birthday parties. We put together decor, balloons, backgrounds. We do wedding arrangements. We bring in staff for those things, preacher to marry them. So basically, event planning is what we do. And we offer maybe a 12 to 6 party during the day, and maybe like a 6 to 10 evening event. We offer caterers that we can recommend, or they can bring their own food in. And then we just have refrigerators, no cooking on the premises. We do have ramp certified mixologists. In case they want to bring in alcohol, we control it with the ramp certified mixologist to serve the drinks and to cut off when it's supposed to be cut off. And we act in harmony with the borough recommendations of when they want to cut off. For me, the cutoff time is 11 and clean up and out by 12. So we, like to work with you on what your recommendations are for that as well.
The board, they might not be familiar with the term ramp. Could you tell them what that means?
So the ramp certified mixologist is just basically a bartender who is certified to serve. There's never any selling of alcohol unless we get, a license for that, liquor license. So we don't do that. But the ramp certified mixologist will card. They will control. If they see someone that had too many drinks, they won't serve them any longer.
RAMP stands for Responsible Alcohol Management Practices, and that's the PLCD's name for it. So I
Yes.
just, okay, that's why.
That's right.
That's why I was getting that, because they might
Yeah, I
not,
didn't want to go too much
they
into
might
that.
not be familiar with it.
That is correct.
Mr. Kia, could you tell the board how many parking spaces are there?
Currently, we have 38 parking within the premises.
Off-street, 38 in the lot.
Yeah, 38,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
excluding the street parkings.
And the space you're renting on the second floor is how many square feet?
5,000.
5,000 square. Okay. I don't have any more questions. If the board had any questions for either Mr. Kia or Ms. White.
And just for the record, Josh, can you state again for the board the parking requirements for the property?
Right, so it's pretty easy because it's 5,000 for the bank, 5,000 for the event space. Bank requires 17 parking spaces. The event space requires 34 parking spaces for a total of 51 spaces. I believe they're asking for a 25% reduction, which would remove 13 spaces. totaling 38 spaces.
I just have one question, ma'am. Well, actually, I have two questions if the board doesn't mind, just for your own clarification.
Yes.
Where is your facility located?
In Fallcroft, PA.
Fulcroft.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is probably the nicest
Thank you.
presentation of pictures this
I did
board
the
has ever
same thing for
received.
my zone meeting, so yeah, that's why I'm mentoring now, so yeah.
So you don't, obviously, there are only certain pictures that are at the proposed facility, which are not quite nice yet.
Right.
But are the other pictures taken from your facility in Fulcroft?
Most of them, yes.
Most of them.
80% of them, yes.
Thank you for that clarification.
Welcome.
That was one of my questions as well. The events that were shown, were they at another facility, your facility, proposal to what his facility would look like?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I may just go through really quickly.
Right, yeah, if you see his facilities kind of,
That's
Yeah.
where the. it's
So this is
open
just the
space.
proposed flyer that we have here and a different style of events. And yes, this one
Right.
here was a wedding that I did at my facility. We have here different baby showers that was also done at my facility. I do repasts as well and decor, so that was done in my facility. And these here, kids' parties and Sweet 16 were done at my venue. Then we have the current second floor space as it is currently. The upstairs to the space, it has a second means of egress. And then he has a kitchenette with no stove. There's 3 offices on the right-hand side that he wants to demo to open up the space a little larger. Then we have some weddings and different things that were done there. This is a seminar. A nurse came into the facility explaining, heart attacks and how to prevent them and the signs. Here's additional parking. And then there's the demo of the 3 offices. This is cultural event, corporate event. And then we had the kids' Cocoa Melon party. So that was all done at my space. And this picture here is one that Harry attended this event. So we just picked up that picture from one of the events he attended. Graduation party, that was another space, but we just wanted to include the type of events that will be done.
So, did I hear you correctly? Your relationship to him is as a mentor? Will you be managing the facility? on
We
his
haven't
behalf?
discussed that yet. Currently, we're just under a 3-month mentorship
Okay,
program. He does want me to work with him, and, as we get the zoning approved and things of that nature, we'll discuss further what will be my position with him.
and then when you mentioned, I heard you say about knocking out the walls for offices or offices to make more event space, will that change the configuration from 5,000 to?
No, that's the total space. The total
That's the-
space
the
is
total-
5,000,
Correct. Okay.
Yes.
total
Okay.
spaces.
including the office space.
And how many restrooms are there?
There's 2 currently.
There's 2.
And we did discuss, because I did as well, change them to ADA, which is handicap accessible. They do have the bars and everything, but the space can be opened up because it's like the same space as the kitchen space. And there's a closet there, so we want to open it up so that there's a 5-foot circumference for the wheelchair accessible ADA handicap code.
Sure, if I can ask this, is this a leased property because the bank is downstairs and they
Yes,
own
it
the
is.
building?
And
correct. No, the bank doesn't own, it's someone else. He leases to the bank and then
Yes.
he's gonna lease to them, yes.
the temporary lease is included.
Yeah, it's a lease that's contingent on him getting a zoning approval.
Got it.
But I
Okay.
think it was submitted as part of his package. And I think he had a letter from the owner also.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have, you were saying about ADA compliance? This is up on the 2nd floor. How do you get to that 2nd floor?
There's 2 stairwells. The front stairwell, so when you come into the bank, to the left, there's a hallway. To the left is the bank, and to the right, there's a code that you can push to go upstairs. No, there's no elevator. There's
How is
2.
it ADA compliant?
Well, we didn't get to that yet, but I did examine the property. I told him he might want to put a wheelchair lift, like a chair lift, on the back entrance. of their property. So I did assess the property and tell him what would be needed to be approved.
And will you use sterno or any other means of heating and warming things if there are parties?
Definitely Snerno, but they have another, a heating system that you just put the trays right on and you just turn it on, so it's electrical, you just plug it up. I like that one better, but either way, there's fire protection and everything else in the facility.
Are there sprinklers upstairs?
No, there isn't currently any sprinklers, but we are proposing to be at 100, which doesn't require a sprinkler system, less than 100,
100 people?
yes.
Okay. Is there only that one set of, you said two
There's
stairs?
two means of egress.
Okay.
Mhm.
And they will have to comply with all building codes before they get their certificate of
Conditional,
occupancy for the property. So if any modifications are required for ADA access, or they'll have to make those modifications prior to certificate of occupancy, and the fire marshal will, of course, or L&I will set the capacity and inform them if they need any fire suppression. And we can, the board is also welcome to make an explicit condition on any approval that they may consider that all building codes of the township are complied with prior to occupancy, or demonstrated and to the satisfaction of the township.
That would be fine.
Can I ask one question? So I just want to clarify, and I know that Mr. Gwynn asked about the sterno. So there's a kitchenette with no stove, and all catering will be coming in from the outside?
That is correct.
Is there any anticipation of adding cooking or a catering kitchen in any way to this?
No.
Thank you.
So when you have people, and Greg just made me think of something, caterers coming in or deliveries coming in, the way that they get to the second floor is via the stairs?
Yes. There is about 2 sets of 10 stairs.
Okay.
It's very, very short distance.
So if you're having heavy equipment brought in, throne chairs, DJs and their speakers,
So-
is there any risk involved there? Are the steps wide enough to accommodate?
Yes, the steps are pretty wide. There's a picture there on that page there. But one thing we like to do is have an all-inclusive event space. So we'll have throne chairs already in place that they can choose from, an in-house decorator, but we will allow decorators to bring stuff in. But they will already have visited and toured the place before, knowing what is proper to bring in. And then, of course, we carry insurances as well.
So you will store these items on site?
Yes, there are
Or-
several offices, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Just one point in clarification, there is no external fire escape from the second floor down?
There is.
There is an external?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, is there any public comment? Mr. McCreesh, would you like to add anything else
No,
additional?
no, we're finished. Thank you very
finished?
much. Thank you for your time, but no, we have nothing else.
Okay. No other comments. I'd like to approve this application.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
good luck.
Sorry, my bad.
Thank you for your time.
You'll receive a written decision within 45 days. Good luck.
Thank you.
I don't want you to do my job, too.
Right.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Can I have this? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, our next application, 12/5 of 23 of Inez Shaka for a variance from 558A, Table 3-1, to permit the existing garage to be the primary structure where it is only permitted as an accessory structure. The location is 2203 Marshall Road in Lansdowne, PA, an R1 residential district.
Right. Before,
Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Good.
right, be- yeah.
Yep, Greg, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Before we begin, is there anybody present this evening who's requesting party status for this application? Okay, we have a couple. Can you please, so Ms. Shaka, if you just mind stepping to the side for just a moment, can you both come forward? And sir, can you please state your name for the record and we'll have you sworn in?
Jeremy Fountain, Jeremy Fountain.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth?
I do.
So, sir, why are you requesting party status?
I own the property immediately adjacent on the right side of this property.
Immediately on the right side. So you,
Yes, my rear property line is fully adjacent to this property.
would that be 300 Lansdowne?
300 north, yes, sir.
I would recommend that the board grant, I'm sorry, your name again?
Fountain.
Mr. Fountain, party status. Is there any objection? Okay, we'll grant you party status. Sir, if you can state your name, and we'll have you sworn in.
My name is Willie Walker, W-L-L-I-E, Walker, W-A-L-K-E-R.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth?
Yes.
And sir, where do you reside?
I'm directly in front of the proposed property at 8 West Marshall Road.
So you're directly across the street then?
Yes.
Okay, I would recommend to the board that we grant Mr. Walker party status. Any objection? All right, sir, you will be a party. So how this will work is we'll start. Yeah, and if you could both fill out a form if you haven't already, just so we have your contact information. I see Mr. Fountain has it already. Do you mind grabbing? So how this will work is we'll have Ms. Shaka give her presentation. And then once she has completed her presentation, both of you can ask Ms. Shaka any questions that you may want. And then the board will ask questions of Ms. Shaka. And then after that, each of you will be given the opportunity to present any testimony and evidence that you would like to present. And Ms. Shaka and you'll all have an opportunity to ask each other questions as well as the board ask you questions. All right? So that being, you can feel free to have a seat until I call on you or Ms. Woodard calls on you. But with the board, in advance of the beginning of testimony, the board will enter the following exhibits. ZHB 1 will be the application packet, ZHB 2 will be the notice photos, and ZHB 3 will be the proof of publication. So Ms. Shaka, you can come back to the podium. We haven't sworn you in yet.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Can proceed with your presentation and discussing with the board why your request.
So I'm here to just request that the property be left as is. I discussed with Mr. Josh what the situation is, how we received the property. He explained to me that really the garage is supposed to be attached to, I'm sorry.
Speaking to the
Sure,
mic.
okay, I'm sorry. The garage is supposed to be attached to a house, but I bought the property already like that. It was already detached. It was just land with a garage on it. So that's why I was advised to come and submit my application to the zoning meeting.
So anything you shared with Mr. Chast, the board doesn't know about. So if there's anything from that conversation that you would like to share with the board, as well as how you propose to use the property, if you propose to make any changes or improvements to the property, if you can just go through all that.
Okay, so as I stated before, it is a standalone garage. that's on a piece of land. There's no house attached to it or anything like that. And this hearing that I applied for is just for me to keep it as such. I'm not really making any improvement to the property. I'm not making any changes to the property. I'm just trying to keep it as such for right now, because that is the best plan for right now. In the future, once I have funding, I do plan to build on it, a residential or an assisted living or a daycare, but for right now, I just want to keep the property as it is. Does that answer the question?
Sure. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with the board at this time?
I'm just ready to answer any questions that you may have. It's my first, I'm sorry, it's my first
That's
time
fine.
coming to this kind of meeting, so I feel like I'm not as prepared as I should have been, but.
So we'll start with the parties, and then we'll open it up to the board for further questions.
Okay.
So, Mr. Fountain, you would be first. Do you have any questions for Ms. Shaka?
Yes.
So, if you can come up to you'll have to come around, but if you can come up to the first chair here, you're welcome to sit and use it. Just make sure you use a microphone. So, Ms. Shaka, Mr. Fountain is going to ask you questions,
Okay.
okay?
Press
So
the
just,
green button.
yeah, just respond
So
honestly.
I understand you mentioned that you said your future uses could be assisted living or daycare, but this is an R1 residential low-intensity lot. And my concern is keeping the lot as a residential, single-family only use, just like my house and all of the other houses on the block. So my concern with designating this as the primary structure, which is clearly not a dwelling you would live in, I'm concerned that that opens the door to other uses that I'm definitely opposing.
Mr. Fountain, I apologize for interrupting. So this is an opportunity to just ask questions. We're going to give you an opportunity to make statements to the board about your opinion on the relief, your position and everything. So this is just questions based on what Ms. Shaka has
So-
testified to.
Thank you. So in the time since you've purchased the property, it appears that there's some sort of large churn in damaged vehicles and auto repair happening on the property, which is definitely not a residential use. What is your intention there? Are you planning to use this to repair cars, or what is your current use as well as your planned use?
Okay, so initially, it was just the area of the property was just used as storage. My husband was like fixing 1 or 2 cars on the property. He was not aware that he couldn't do that. Once we received the letter that the property could not be a commercial or a garage, I did speak to Mr. Joshua and Lanai and explain that it's not like, my husband is not a mechanic. We're not fixing people's cars or anything like that. And I explained to my husband that, somebody in the neighborhood thinks that this is being run as a garage, and that is not permitted. And then that's when afterwards, I try to take the steps to get this zoning hearing set up so that we could remediate, because in the process of that, I was made aware that the garage by itself, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but the fact that it's just a garage by itself is not compliant with the current zoning rules.
So if this were not to be approved, how does that impact you? What does it stop you from doing or enable you to do that's different from what you currently do with it? I'm not sure that I understand what this zoning request, what change it would make for you.
This zoning request is to just, so I'm in compliance because there's no house attached to the property. So that's what I'm trying to remediate with this hearing. I'm not sure what the other part of the question is.
So if this were to be denied, and it's hard because it's sort of a question for zoning, but if this were to be denied, I'd like to understand how that negatively impacts you versus it being approved. If it was just a matter of it there has to be a primary structure, then it seems like the law would automatically designate that. And clearly that's not the case because there's a zoning review. So I'm not sure exactly what this changes other than.
I believe that I'm going to face more financial hardship because that's more fines that are going to be attached to the properties because
Are
it's
there
out
fines?
of.
That wasn't-
Hold on. I think this is speculation at this point, and I'm just going
So I'm
to
not-
ask.
I'm
hold on,
not
wait
100%
a
sure.
second, wait a second. I'm just going to ask, so the question, I think, is better posed for the zoning officer. If the relief is not granted tonight, the property would not be able to be used as a garage. It would have to be unoccupied and unused until a permitted use or a use that received relief was permitted to go in there, correct?
That's correct. Or it becomes the accessory use, right? Say they built a house and then that becomes the accessory garage for it. I don't know if that would actually work the way the lot's laid out, but theoretically that would also make it conforming again. Right now it's non-conforming.
Is there any intention to change the current structure, add to it, and make it a living structure?
So yes, I would love to see it, like I said, like turned into like a residential assisted living, not a huge space, a small assisted living facility. But I
Which I
don't
must point
have-
out is not an R1 allowed use.
Okay, I understand that. Like I said, these are just things that I've thought about doing with the space. And I don't know, does that answer your question?
Close enough. Yeah. I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Walker, do you have any questions for Ms. Shaka?
Well, for the most part, I think that Jeremy has pretty much answered all my questions, but I'm just not really clear though, specifically.
Could you come up to the mic?
I'm just asking specifically, what do you plan to use the garage for? Because I'm not very clear on that.
Right, to continue to use it as storage.
Pardon me?
Storage, that's all it's being used for
But
right
you
now.
also mentioned assistant living and those
Be-
kinds of things. So I'm not very clear as to what you want to do with the property. I'm really not.
I think, Mr. Walker, Ms. Shaka's testimony was that if she were to have future plans, she would she would desire to maybe establish a small assisted living facility on the
Which is a
property.
business, which is a commercial business. Is that what you're?
That
proposing?
would be a determination as to the zoning officer, if it were permitted there and what relief would be necessary. That is just what she is envisioning for an eventual use of the property.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. So you're proposing at some point, open a business in that space?
I believe that's a yes.
Yes, if I am allowed, but if I'm not allowed, then I would think about something else to do, whether it's building a house on the area and renting it out, whatever it is that I can do with the property. But again, this is in the future. I'm not in a position to do that right now. I don't know if that answers your question as to what I plan on using it presently.
No, I think I'm clear. So you just said in the future you plan to.
Correct, like in
open a
the,
business, which you're indicating.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Does the board have any questions for Ms. Shaka?
Yes, hi. So do you know how the property was used before your purchase of it?
so I've done some research since, and from my understanding, it used to be part of a larger property that was split off into smaller properties, and the one that I own is, I guess, a piece of a larger property. I'm not sure if it was all part of just one big house or if it was just two houses. I'm not 100% sure on like the full history of the property.
So it was subdivided? That's what your research
That's what my
showed?
understanding is. When I bought it from the county, the description was just a land. It did say that there's a detached garage on it.
Okay, okay. And if you are not awarded, Well, if this application isn't approved, I heard you say you had to think about what you might do with it. Is there any possibility that you could, since it's an R1 district, residential district, that you could, I mean, could, you don't know until you go apply for financing and everything that goes with it, but is that even an option for you and your family?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the
Is-
question?
So if you are not awarded this, or you are awarded, is making that subdivision that you currently own, building a house on there, is that an option? Like you might have to tear the structure down or modify, have, engineers come and
Of
do that
course,
kind of
in
stuff?
the,
Is
in the
that-
future, if I do get funding, the plan would be to build something brand new. It's not a livable space. When I'm talking about having an assisted living facility, you have to, follow certain guidelines. An assisted living facility is essentially a home, a house where people live that receive home care services. So,
But that's different than a residential area like the other homes on the block. That's what I'm trying to figure out, if you even have thought of that.
so,
Hold on.
sorry.
I would recommend to the board, even though there was testimony about the potential future uses, the only thing before us this evening is the proposed current use of the garage. So as the sole and primary structure and use on the property. So other than what is permitted under R1, which by right is just a single-family residence, there's a couple special exceptions like auditorium and hospital that may be permitted, but generally we're looking at just a residence being permitted on this property in the future. That's a future application. So I would just encourage the board to focus on this property being used solely as a non-accessory garage
Okay.
for the time
Okay.
being.
Okay.
Yeah. As I understand it, there is no other existing building, only the garage that stands. And it does have a curb cut that lets that go out onto Marshall Road. What are the boundary lines associated with your property?
I'm sorry.
What are the boundary lines associated with your property? That's one of the things that's not been real clear to me. Do you have any part or address of that boundary that goes out to the other streets?
No, so only like the
Only just
front,
to Marshall?
only the front of the property, is on the street, or like on the curb, if you wanna, is on Marshall Street. The rest of the lines of the property are in between two other properties that are, Owens is one of the intersecting roads, and then, oh my gosh, what's the other? Lansdowne Avenue is the other one, yes.
So I have some questions as well. So you mentioned that you're currently using the existing garage for storage. That's its
Correct.
primary purpose. Could you go over like what are you storing in that garage currently right now that you couldn't store elsewhere?
Just like tools and construction material, like boards and things like that.
Okay. And like today, you wouldn't have, do you have any space on your existing lot, not the subdivided lot, to have some type of storage or garage as an accessory use to, I'd assume that there's a house there on your existing lot?
Wait,
No?
what-
What were we just
I'm
talking
sorry.
about?
Just the garage.
Oh, just the garage?
The garage,
Oh,
there's
okay,
no
all right.
house.
Okay.
Do you have any access to power?
No,
And water?
no,
There's no electricity to the garage?
not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
How do you do upkeep on the property?
My husband goes out there and like cuts like the shrubs and trees. Like, when we got the property, it was very bushy, so he like cleaned up cut some of the bushes and stuff like that. But other than that, there's no water, there's no power to it. It's just storage right now. And I can just say, like, when I did acquire this property, it was listed as 0 Marshall Road. And when you go on the county to try and research the location, there's about 30-something 0 Marshall roads that pop up. So there was a bit of confusion as to what plot we acquired. So if that can explain a little bit of why, like, I didn't know what to do with the space at first.
Just for a question for the zoning officer, was this property subdivided all the way back in 1996? Does that seem accurate? It's been existing like this for that long.
I don't know the year, but it's been existing for a while.
Do we have any more questions for Ms. Shaka?
Whenever we get the chance, can we go to executive?
Yeah.
Sure. I think we'll hear from Mr. Fountain and Mr. Walker.
Of course.
All right. Do you have anything else you'd like to add at this time?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
You can have a seat, and we'll call you back up. Mr. Fountain, if you want to offer any testimony
Thank you.
or present any evidence.
So when they acquired the property, it was overgrown, something that we had been frustrated about for a long time. It was basically abandoned. In fact, we've been in court with the previous owner of this property because of its misuse and abandonment for a commercial purpose, and the court ruled in our favor, and that has thankfully ceased until the new owner took possession and the new activities around cars coming through, and there's been at least 6 or 7 in a row, and there's 2 there right now that have been there for some time in some state of non-function. There are construction materials, wood, stone, other things that are stored, looks like maybe even some appliances that are just stored on the property outside the garage. They're in clear view. While they did clear the property when they initially acquired it, maintenance has been spotty to absent as far as ongoing maintenance for the most part. And maybe this is part of the activity that has ceased, but when the repairs were actively going on, there was always a truck backed in with the front doors open to block the view from the street. And then somewhere between 2 and 4 men would be engaged in repair or hanging out or whatnot. So it's been an ongoing concern for a while because it's not what it would expect to be happening at a neighboring property in a residential neighborhood. So our concern, and my concern with any changes to the zoning is to make sure that we don't accidentally enable future unintended uses. I cannot imagine the structure being converted into a livable home. It is a very narrow lot. I can't give you the exact dimensions, but it's very narrow. So any new home built on it with even basic modern setbacks would be basically a single row home. It's very narrow. It's deep, but it's narrow. So it's not exactly an ideal lot to build a single family home on with modern layouts of any reasonable sort. That's all I have.
Ms. Shaka, do you have any questions for Mr. Fountain?
I just wanted to just like clarify, like, so your concern is about the future use of the property?
The current use as well as.
The current as well as the future. So right now, what would be a solution to the problem that you have, which is, from what I understand, you don't want the garage to stay there, but then you don't want a house built there either?
I don't mind the garage staying if it's used as a garage with things that you've mentioned, construction and things, I think stored in the garage, but stored visible in the driveway and the maintenance on the property as it currently stands. That's my concern. I wouldn't want to see a automotive business or any sort of commercial business. If someone were working from home, that's a very different thing, but a commercial endeavor or a lot in disarray or not being maintained. The garage itself has always been there, storing things in the garage. I don't have any argument against storing things and using the garage as they're generally intended.
Any
I
other
don't have
questions
any.
for Mr. Fountain, Ms. Shaka?
No, I don't have any other
Mr.
questions.
Walker, do you have any questions for Mr. Fountain?
No, I just want to make a quick statement.
We'll get to that in a moment. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Fountain?
No. I have a question for her.
And we'll go around again. Mr. Fountain, just based on your statements about the size of the property, just for the board's clarification, have you reviewed the comparative property sizes in the area?
It is among the smallest, in width. It's very deep, but it is, width, street-facing width is very narrow, even for the neighborhood. Usually lots that are slightly, maybe 50% larger, you could put a very narrow twin on. So my layman's guess on this is that it would have to be basically a very narrow sort of shotgun style single house, which could be built, but there aren't many of those in our neighborhood.
Are you familiar with Mr. Walker's house across the street?
Yes.
Would it surprise you if I told you that according to the county records, Mr. Walker's property is the same width as the subject property tonight?
It would surprise me,
Okay.
but I'm also making my judgment based on a privacy fence, and that might not be the property line.
Okay.
So if I've made an assumption there, I apologize.
Just wanted to be
No, I
what you're
appreciate
basing
the
the
clarity.
testimony on, so thank you. Anything else for Mr. Fountain? All right. Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Mr. Walker, now is your opportunity to provide any testimony or present any evidence.
Well, I really concur with everything that.
Hold on, just make sure you're speaking into the microphone so that
Okay.
both the board and the stenographer can hear you.
I concur with everything that Jeremy just mentioned, so I'm not going to go over all of them again. I have been at 8 West Marshall Road this September for 30 years. And when I first moved there, it was a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood, a beautiful residential neighborhood, by the way. And I never envisioned a commercial property being located directly in front of my property. And since they purchased the property, like Jeremy indicated, cars have been being transported almost on a weekly basis. And they appear to be abandoned cars, so they're working on. And there are also a couple of cars parked there right now. And every other week, there are different cars parked there. And so my concern is not having a commercial property in front of my house.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Walker. Just hang on just a second. Ms. Shaka, do you have any questions for Mr. Walker?
Up to the mic.
Do you have any, it's just questions. I'll give you another opportunity to make a statement, but do you have any questions for Mr. Walker?
This is just referring to the statement that you just made, that there are cars being brought there every other week. Is this something that is still current, or is this something that has happened in the past that has since then stopped?
Well, it stopped, I guess, what, a couple weeks ago, maybe?
A couple weeks
I
ago?
live directly in front of the garage there, and I see all the cars, and I see them come and go.
Would that be
And-
my husband's car? They come and go. That
Well,
would be my husband
pardon me?
that would be my husband in
Well,
his
he-
truck, but
they're in there, they're also working on the cars, like they're abandoned cars or some kind of mechanic shop. That's how it appears to be. to me.
there's a car that has been parked there, but
Mhm.
no other older cars have been brought there since I was made aware of the situation, of the problem.
I understand.
I just wanted to clarify, because I don't want it to seem like we didn't, I don't want it to make it seem like we didn't hear your concern. Like, the concern was that you thought that there was a garage that was being run, or a mechanic garage being run out of the place. And
That's exactly how it appeared.
right, and I apologize for that, but that is not the case. And the cars that you've seen come in and out, which would be a Dodge truck or a white car, those are personal cars that we're still using.
Not those, ma'am. My house is directly in front of you. As a matter of fact, my bedroom is directly in front of you.
With all due, I'm gonna, in the interest of what the board needs to hear, unless you want to hear more of this, I think the board understands that there were, and depending on what the board finds to be credible, may continue to be car repairs happening on the site. I don't know if we have to go in back and forth on the cars that came and went or how often they're there unless the board is interested in that testimony at this time. Okay, so I think we understand both Mr. Walker's concerns and Ms. Shaka's response to those concerns. So unless there's something else, then is there anything else, Mr. Walker? On your, okay. So Mr. Fountain, do you have any questions for Mr. Walker? No, sir. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Walker? Okay, thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
And now I believe, oh, for Mr. Walker? Okay.
Actually, it would be the question that Ms. Shaka posed to Mr. Fountain. What would you like to see? Or what would be your expectations to see on that piece of
Well,
property?
I had mentioned that I concur pretty much with what Jeremy indicated. I don't mind staying in garage as long as the storage takes place inside. I don't want a mechanic shop in front of my house, which is what appears to be happening now. Cars are being transported almost on a weekly basis, and that I do not want to see there. Sure, thank you.
I believe the board may have an additional question or two for Ms. Shaka.
Did, but I forgot it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. I think, zoning officer, you are recognized.
Thank you. So to answer your previous question, you asked me 1996, the subdivision was in 2005. And I do have the subdivision plans, and I did share them with Ms. Shaka.
And that was when those two lots were subdivided.
That's correct.
303 Owen and.
It has the lots, the setbacks and everything.
Any other questions from the board?
I have one. In terms of the fact that at some point there was, yes. My apology.
It's all right.
In terms of the fact that at some point there may have been cars that were coming there and such, how did you take care of the oil, if there was a problem, changing of oil, or things of that nature?
So my understanding, just like when he does an oil change at our house, he'll actually put the oil like in like the proper container and then dispose of it that way. Like they
Where
sell.
did it go?
I'm sorry?
Did it go to a proper disposal?
Correct. Now, I'm not like a mechanic. I don't really know those things. I just know that when he
Or
does
am
the
I?
oil changes, it does go into a container and he disposes of it that way. But don't ask me where he's actually taking them. I'm not 100% sure.
The other point that I've been trying to get a handle on, because the only points of reference that I could see on the property was the garage itself and the driveway of it.
Yes.
I couldn't distinguish whether it was centered for the property on that driveway or whether it was left or right of it. How far to the other people's property did your property go? It was,
Let me try to describe it as best as I can. So, yeah, yes, please.
Is this from the property file? I think the board can take notice of that. We can take a look at this as, we'll mark ZHB 4 as the 2005 subdivision plan. And if after the board is done, if either of Mr. Walker or Mr. Fountain, you want to look at this before we recess into executive session, we'll give you an opportunity. Hold on, we can't, hold on, we can't have conversations that the stenographer can't take down. So if there's any questions, we'll have to have, or at least turn around a microphone for Ms. Shaka to speak into.
I was just pointing out that the garage is more to the rear of the property. This is the driveway, which is, I guess, off-center towards the left side of the garage.
I think the right side as you're looking at the property, right?
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm looking at it the wrong place.
Josh, does the property as it exists today comply with, is it compliant with the zoning code? Is it minimum lot area compliant and everything? Not that we're debating that, I'm just curious. Okay. I like that you recognize when this is completely unnecessary for the transcript.
Sorry, Bridget. No, that's fine. So in the R-1, right, the minimum lot size is 6,500 square feet. Looks like this parcel area is three, or 65 by, oh, there it is. No, that's everything. That's the whole number of lots. So let me see if they give a final.
It's a little over 7,000 square feet.
Yeah, I'm looking for that. No, I know, because this is the subdivision. So. You could add parcel A, parcel B perhaps, or parcel 2.
I believe in the application, there's a description of the property and the square feet. This is the
7,000. That's for parcel 3. I think it's 7,162 square feet. I think parcel 3 is this new parcel. I think it was A and B, and then maybe it becomes C.
Someone skip Sesame Street.
This square footage is what is listed on that
7,000.
paperwork and also registered with Delaware County.
Okay, so assume it's 7,162, even though it doesn't say specifically.
And it looks like based on that plan, with the setbacks applied, there's a buildable area.
Those are 2005 setbacks. Let me see. Minimum street frontage is 35. So about another 10 feet from where they're at now.
Well, the lot's not going to change. I was just worried.
I'm sorry. That's minimum. Sorry, minimum front yard is 25 feet. The width is fine. Minimum lot width at the building line might be small.
Well, I'm just worried about the setbacks.
The setbacks?
So we got 25-foot front yard.
Yeah,
10
and
foot minimum, 14.
it's 10-foot minimum, 25-foot aggregate.
And
So
20 rear yard.
So we've got 25 aggregate with 10 minimum on each side. So roughly, it might need 1 or 2 variances just with the building lot line, but
The lot's non-existing.
Non-conforming.
So,
sure.
all right.
Thank you.
Can we, Ms. Shaka, can you put this down on the table? Mr. Fountain and Mr. Walker, would you like to look at this briefly?
Sorry. Is there any public comment, additional public comment? Okay, we're going to take an executive session break. We'll be right back. Okay, so, oh, I'm sorry, I thought she left the room, okay. Okay, so we've decided to, I'm sorry. I am so sorry, I'm in a corporate meeting. I'd like to make a motion that we grant the variance as long as the structure remains as a garage with internal storage. And there will be no commercial business done whatsoever.
I'm just gonna ask a clarifying question before we ask for a second.
Sure.
So your motion is to grant the variance, and for as long as the garage remains the primary use of the property, there will only be internal storage,
Correct?
and there shall be no commercial enterprises operated on the property.
Correct. All. Does that include as far as internal storage
If the car is being stored there.
inside?
It has
If
to be
the- if-
internal, so it has to be inside the building.
So there's a difference between storage and a car visiting. I would give your answer. Yes, as long as the car's not being stored there.
Visiting car compared to stored car.
They stored overnight?
Mm-hmm.
So, can I just
If
ask
there,
a
if,
question to
if,
clarify that?
One
sure.
sec.
So, right now, currently, there's car that's stored right there. So you're saying that those need to be removed
Or moved inside.
or moved inside. If my husband goes there, he can park the car outside though, correct? If it's a car that
Correct.
he's using.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Right,
Understood.
okay.
So,
Are we all
Is there a
clear?
second to that clarified motion?
Second to
All
everything
in
that was said.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, you'll receive,
Yes.
yes,
Sorry.
yes, before we pause again.
Thank you for your time.
You'll receive something in the mail in 45 days.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Our last, sure.
Walker, do you have an email address? Can you supplement your form with an email address? If you don't mind, I'd prefer to send your copy of the decision by email. Yes.
Our last application, 12/6 of 23, of Savage Sisters Recovery, Inc., for a special exception pursuant to Section 550-51-1B to permit a sober living home and the determination that the existing nonconforming parking is an existing legal nonconformity. Alternatively, a variance from Section 550-51-1B11 to permit less than the required parking amount of off-street parking. The location is 142 Springton Road in Upper Darby. It's a R3 residential district in the 7th Council District.
Is there anybody present this evening who would like to request party status for application 12-6? Ma'am, could you please come up to the microphone? If you can state your name, we'll have you sworn in.
Jakia Handy. Jakia, last name Handy. Yes,
So it's Miss Handy?
yes.
Okay. So Miss Handy, where are you Where do you reside?
I reside directly across the street at 147 Springton Road.
147 Springton?
Correct.
Lost my agenda. No, it's my fault. 147, and this is 142. Okay. I would recommend that we grant Ms. Handy party status. Is there any objection from the board?
None.
Seeing none. Ms. Handy, you'll be granted party status, and I think you were here for the last hearing, so you understand how we'll proceed. Okay. Is there anybody else requesting party status? You can have a seat for the time being. And if, Ms. Handy, if you can fill out one of those forms on the front table, I'd appreciate it. Anybody else for party status? Okay, seeing none, the board will enter the following exhibit. ZHB1 will be the application packet. ZHB2 will be the notice photos, and ZHB3 will be proof of publication. I believe we have Mr. Fromhold on behalf of the applicant. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Fred Fromhold. I'm an attorney and represent the applicant Savage Sisters Recovery, Inc. in this matter. And just for the record, we have no objection to the request for standing by Ms. King.
Thank you.
In April of 2021, the council introduced into the zoning code of Upper Darby Township a definition of sober living home and permitted sober living homes by special exception in all residential zoning districts. The property at 142 Springton Road, which is the subject of this application, is located in an R3 residence district, so that this special exception is appropriate. What's important for the board, and we'll provide testimony this evening in support of this, is that the proposed use qualify as a sober living home. And it is defined in the code to be a residential facility used by 4 or more individuals residing together voluntarily or by court requirement to recover from drug, alcohol, and/or substance abuse, and does not include the current illegal use of or addiction to a controlled substance as defined in 21 U.S.C. Section 802. Such facility must also serve as a transitional environment between rehabilitation facilities and reintegration into their future lives. And that's exactly what Savage Sisters Recovery, Inc. proposes for this particular property. It's the interim between the rehabilitation from the active drug use to the integration in society. So it is a period of time in the lives of those who are recovering from addictions to live together in an environment where they are clean, where they are tested, where they are introduced to gainful employment, and then hopefully go on to good and productive lives. This would be the 11th facility established by Savage Sisters, Inc. There are facilities in the city. There is one other in a suburban municipality, and then this would be number 11 in Upper Darby. I have marked exhibit packages that I'd like to introduce to the board, just go through what the various exhibits are. Then I would like to call Sarah Laurel Higgins, who is the founder of Savage Sisters, and she can tell you about exactly what is proposed for this facility, what is happening at other facilities that would be replicated here. And then, as you know, there are several objective criteria that must be satisfied to qualify as a sober living home under Section 550-15 51.1, beginning with Section B, but carrying over into Sections C, D, and E. And we would like to present testimony that supports compliance with all of those sections. There are, as you know, also general special exception standards in the code, and we believe that as we go through the testimony, there will be facts that we establish that will enable you, we believe, to determine that those criteria are also met.
Thank you. And just for the record, Mr. Fromhold, as you're distributing your exhibit packets, I believe under the ordinance, the board will evaluate based on Section B of 51.1 as the objective criteria, but they do appreciate you demonstrating compliance with the full section to the full requirements under the zoning code under 51.1 to the extent possible this evening.
Yeah, thank you. And they are voluminous, so we'll try to present the testimony in a fashion that we believe is satisfactory, and the board may have questions of either me or our witness as we go through them.
Mr. Before you proceed, does Ms. Handy have a copy of your exhibits?
I'm sorry?
Thank you, Mr. Fromhold.
To go through the exhibits, A1 is the deed to the property, and this is just December 8th, 2023, so the property is recently acquired by Sarah Higgins pursuant to the deed that is Exhibit A1. Behind it is Exhibit A2, which is a lease agreement between Sarah Laurel, who is Sarah Higgins. She goes by both names, and she can confirm that. And it is a lease between her as the owner of the property and Savage Sisters Recovery, Inc. as the tenant of the property. And I believe that would demonstrate that there is legal standing for the applicant, Savage Sisters, to bring this application before you this evening. The next exhibit is A3, and A3 is a certain county tax data. It's an exhibit that is comprised of a few different sheets, and the first sheet is the tax map that highlights 142 Springton. It's located, the property on Springton Road, and as you turn that exhibit clockwise, 90 degrees, so that it is upright, you will see that Springton Road comes down from Bradford, and Springton Road is a one-way street with parking on both sides. The lot is depicted on that particular exhibit. Behind it, the next two sheets are additional property data from the county records that address ownership, size of property, assessment information, et cetera, number of rooms, and we'll have testimony on that, and there are other exhibits to follow that will shed further light on that. Exhibit A4 is comprised of two sheets. The first sheet is a Google Earth street image that shows the property, which is a twin, which is dead center. It's the left side of the twin that is just to the right of a driveway that goes between the buildings as shown in that location. The second sheet is an aerial that depicts with a red dot with a green circle around it the property, and it shows its location on Springton Road. The next sheet, A5, lists the various locations of existing Savage Sisters recovery facilities. in Philadelphia and in the suburbs, tentatively, the one that is just recently opened on Tenby Road in Havertown, and the tentative one here at 142 Springton, which would be subject to this board's approval. You'll note that there are women's facilities and men's facilities. What is proposed here is a women's facility at 142 Springton. The next exhibit is a photographic package, A6, and this shows various rooms. The first four photographs in that photographic package show the first level as you come in to the living area through the front door. There is on the third sheet there the kitchen facility with bar stools that are in front of the counter. There's a desk that is shown there as well, and the picture that follows shows the seating area where there are a couple of seats. The state has regulations that are met by Savage Sisters recovery facilities at the existing locations. They would also be met here. There are specific requirements for square footage of bedrooms, depending on the number of beds. They are being met here. And of course, the state would inspect the facility, has the right to inspect the facility, just as the township code provides that the township may inspect these facilities annually. So to my knowledge, this is the first facility that has sought approval by special exception, and I think the point to make there is that there is a spacing requirement, I think, of 500 feet between facilities, and this being the first facility would, I believe, then qualify that it does not violate that separation requirement of the code. To get back to the photographs, the last few photographs in the photograph exhibit show the bedrooms. There are 3 bedrooms, 2 of which would be proposed for 2 beds. The third bedroom, because of its dimensions and whatnot, would qualify for a bunk plus a single bed. So there would be 7 beds on the second floor. There is also on the lower level of this building a bedroom and a bath, so that you'll hear from Sarah Laurel that there will be a manager who will be in that location. In short, it's a senior person who has been there and experienced and has elevated among the other residents to qualify as a manager of the house. Part of that same exhibit are floor plans of the first floor, the second floor, and the basement. Although the basement doesn't show the bath there, there is a bath at that level. It shows the dimensions of the various rooms on those levels. A7 are some of the residency documents, and these relate to what the requirements are, what people are, the residents are informed of at the time they would seek entry into the facility, and then there are rules and regulations that they must subscribe to be part of the facility. There is the opportunity to terminate residents. Residents have a right under state law, and I believe under the township code as well, to leave at any time. So there's no requirement that somebody stay, but the idea certainly is that there is success with this facility for a significant majority of those who enter, and that is the goal, to get them back into society. A8 is a document which is the medication control and standards for administration and safekeeping of medications. And finally, A9, and I included this in going on the internet. I will say Savage Sisters Recovery has a very impressive website, very informative of what they do, all of the services and outreach that they're involved with, the good things they do in their communities. And I also found what I thought was a very interesting article about our witness this evening, founder of Savage Sisters, Sarah Laurel, and it's entitled, it's with the Keystone news outlet, and I think it's from 2021. It says, once left for dead, this Philadelphia woman is helping those battling addiction. And it's, I think, a very thorough and heartwarming article about her experience, and what she is now doing for others who are dealing with addictions. So that is my introduction. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have preliminarily about any of these exhibits. If you don't have any questions, or at the appropriate time, I'll call Sarah Higgins.
You can move into your testimony since we have a oppositional party, and then we can make any
thank you.
clarifications as we go.
Sarah, if you want to come up here and the first thing I'd like to ask you, I've gone through these exhibits.
Can you raise your right hand, please?
Oh, sure.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Okay.
Can you hear me if I keep my voice up and I don't speak directly into the mic, or is it better if I get a mic? Yeah, can I do that?
You can go to that first chair. Use that, and you can sit in there.
Okay, I'll try that.
Okay.
Look at the green light.
Is that better? Okay, good. Thank you. Sarah, I introduced a number of exhibits, the deed, the lease. Those are the documents by which you acquired title, and Savage Sisters is leasing the property from you as the owner of the property. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. And we showed photographs of the interior of the property. Those photographs reflect the current condition with the furniture that is in there now, in anticipation of being able to occupy, provided, of course, that you would receive approval from the zoning board, and the permits you would be required from the township.
Yes.
And A7 were residency documents. You provided them to us. And can you tell us generally what they're about?
There's a multitude of residency documents. We have an intake paperwork that our director of housing, whether it's male or female, we have Chris and Mel, that we do with the assistance of the treatment facility that the individual is a patient of before they come on property. And then we decide if it's a good program for them. So we have intake paperwork once they come to the property. I don't know the exact number of papers it is, but there's rules, regulations, all of the required documents from the Department of Drugs and Alcohol through the Recovery House regulation that just began last year. So we comply with them, and they also understand what their rights are, what the rules around medications are, and it should all be there, but if not, we can always provide it digitally.
And then A8 was a document that dealt with medication control and administration procedures. Are those the current procedures that you would be using at this facility as you are at the other existing facilities?
Yes.
All right. Where do you live, Sarah?
I live in Kensington.
Okay. And you go by Sarah Laurel and by Sarah Higgins, that's one and the same person?
I go by Sarah Laurel. It's my middle name, and it's for safety and anonymity reasons. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and I work with a very different population in Kensington. So for safety reasons, I just go by Sarah Laurel. But on legal documents, obviously, I can't.
Okay. And
That's
what
what
I
that
would like to do is ask you a number of questions about the compliance of this facility with the standards that are established in the Upper Darby Township Code. But before doing so, I'd like if you would take just a minute to tell the board about your background and how you got into the position you're in now with Savage Sisters Recovery, Inc.
Okay. As I stated, I'm a person in long-term recovery. About 6.5 years ago, I experienced a trauma. So I used to be a director at a popular hotel chain, and I got carpal tunnel. I was prescribed an opiate that led to a harrowing drug addiction, which landed me homeless and addicted to substances in Kensington. I experienced a physical trauma. I went out a second-story window wearing a dress that said Savage in 2017, and I was in the ICU. I had metal put into my leg. I was in a wheelchair. A friend reached out and said, "Do you want to start a recovery house?" I did not, but I was in a wheelchair and I didn't have anywhere safe to go. I'd been to treatment 28 times, and I had been brokered in and out of unsafe housing with owners that were taking advantage and exploiting women specifically. So I decided to do this, and it very organically began with me and 2 of my friends. We now have 11 homes. All of our homes offer free private practitioner trauma therapy, kickboxing, yoga, and Reiki for all of our participants. And the outreach that we do in Kensington, the nationwide training that we do, and the drop-in center offering showers in wound care in Kensington is something that happened as a direct result to the change in the drug supply. I lived down there and was just doing it out of my car, and my family got involved, my friends got involved. It became something that the residents started doing, and it has grown. We have gotten a lot of recognition because we are on the forefront of the xylazine/trank dope situation in Kensington. And so we've been helping inform other cities on how to prepare. So there's 3 parts to the nonprofit. We have the harm reduction work and the education, and we have the housing. The housing is run very differently than what we do in Kensington, but we all just want to all the programs kind of coexist together in a way to create radical love through connection in the street. It's connecting you to different services in the housing. It's connecting you to things that you most likely wouldn't have access to given certain socioeconomic backgrounds like myself. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. And in this particular facility, there are 3 bedrooms on the second level? And you would propose a total of 7 individuals, 2 in 2 of the bedrooms for a total of 4, and then 3 additional persons in a bedroom that would contain a bunk bed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. And is there thinking behind having 2 people in a room?
It's pro-social. We find that it helps individuals who might want to isolate in early recovery. It also increases safety. You have a way to check in on people and make sure that they're okay. It's good for mental health, and we try to have everything be a family setting. They eat together, they go to meetings together, and they do a lot of social activities as well as community service together.
So there's 7 people on the second floor, and there would be 1 person in the lower level. Is that correct?
Correct, a house manager.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about the daily routine within this facility as it relates to the 7 individuals, and also talk separately, if you would, about the house manager, what the house manager's role is?
Sure. There is a requirement that you get a job within 2 weeks. We have a lot of assistance with that, getting resumes built and helping individuals get to and from job interviews with SEPTA passes, and we have a computer on property. Individuals have certain restrictions around hours. They can't work overnight because it's a community living environment. Everybody kind of has to have a regular work schedule. Everybody is required to attend a daily meeting, whether it's a 12-step fellowship or Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Smart Recovery. It just depends on what they want to do. So individuals will work depending on what their shift is. They have a daily chore. They have to be up and out of bed by 9 a.m. Their chores have to be done, and a picture of those chores have to be sent in a group chat by 10 a.m. Medications are administered before 8 a.m. by the house manager, so they would go downstairs. There's a large safe. Inside the large safe, there's individual safes for each individual resident where they can access their own medications once a day. That happens in the morning, and then they go about their day, and then they have dinner at night, and usually a 7 o'clock meeting. Whether it's on Zoom or in person, depends on the community.
So all of the residents have come off of rehabilitation?
I don't understand that
Well-
question.
Well,
I'm sorry.
they have been in a rehab facility?
Yeah, we like to transition from a treatment facility. We're not a medical detox. We don't handle anybody that has drugs in their system currently. But we give weekly urines to everybody in the house, including the house manager, and you have to go to a treatment facility if you have any narcotics in your system or alcohol, which is a narcotic.
One of the things that you had said with respect to this location at 142 Springton, it was convenient to public transportation, is that?
Yes, majority, I believe over 91% of our residents do not have cars or licenses. So public transportation is crucial to them recreating their lives and getting to and from work.
Okay, and is the location of an AA program an attractive feature of this location as well?
Yes, and there are a few local in-person meetings that are available as well as a clubhouse.
I would like to turn now to 550-51.1 of the code and go through some of the various specific requirements for a special exception in the B1 district. And I will go down these. These are numbered B1 through B13. So B1 talks about the lot upon which the sober living home or institutional residence is situated shall meet the minimum area requirements established in the zoning district regulations. And it says the sober living home shall not be located in an accessory building, which is the case here. I'm going to get back to the first sentence in a moment. Additionally, and in order to integrate the living homes into the neighborhood, no sober living home may be located within 500 feet of another sober living home as measured from the property line. And in that regard, I would ask the zoning officer whether you have made any inquiry to see whether there are any other sober living homes that have been approved within 500 feet of this location.
Not to my knowledge.
All right, thank you. So the first sentence there, it says the lot upon which the living home is situated shall meet the minimum lot area requirements established in the district. The lot area of the lot in question is a little under 2,000 square feet, I think, per the county records. And if you do an analysis of the legal description in the deed, I believe the minimum lot area that is set forth in the R3 district is 3,000 square feet if you are talking about a two-family semi-detached dwelling. Now, we have two positions on that, and really this is a legal question, so I'm going to try to address it rather than having Sarah address it. But if you look at 550-15, the R3 residential district regulations. In subsection D, it says, the following lot area and bulk standards shall be required for every building or structure hereinafter erected, altered, or used. So our position would be that this section establishes a minimum lot area for every building or structure hereinafter altered or used. It would not apply that area requirement to an existing structure. And I think the other way to look at that is that the lot is non-conforming. So it's often considered that a lot would be non-conforming if it's a little under 2,000 square feet when the minimum lot area required is 3,000 square feet. But I think the way this section is worded, that it really doesn't apply to an existing building, because there is only that requirement for every building or structure hereinafter altered, erected, or used. And this building is now in existence. It's not being altered, and it is, in fact, being used. So we would submit that we either comply with that particular requirement, or the property would be non-conforming to that requirement. That's number one under 550-51.1B.
Mr. Fromhold, we'll note that for the record and take it under advisement.
Thank you. Second, it says, the residents of a sober living home shall maintain a single household unit with shared use of the living areas, eating areas, bathrooms, food prep, serving areas, and shall share meal times, housekeeping responsibilities. I think you've already provided your testimony that that is what in fact happens at your existing homes and what you would propose here at 142 Springton Road. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Number 3 says the accommodations in a sober living home shall be provided for no more than the maximum number of occupants or residents as permitted by the applicable building code, fire code, and any other similar code that sets forth a maximum occupancy limit for a dwelling or building. I don't believe that there are any township codes that would come into play here that would limit the number of people in a family or occupants here. But there is a state code, and is it your testimony that the bedrooms will meet the state code requirements for the number of residents that would occupy each bedroom and use each bedroom?
Yes.
And it says the applications for sober living shall specify the maximum number of residents or occupants to be housed or cared for at the facility. And is it your testimony that that would be 8, the 7 residents on the second level, and on the lower level, it would be the 1 resident manager?
Yes.
And then number 4 says registration with the Commonwealth in compliance with all regulations for licensure or certification is promulgated by Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs, DDAP, in accordance with 71 PS 613.13 as amended. Is it your testimony that this facility will be registered?
Yes.
Okay, and your other facilities are licensed under a single license, is that correct?
Yes, so DDEP just started their licensure last year. We actually were on the committee to create the regulations because we have a harmful ethics reduction committee and we've advocated for this. However, they have hundreds across the state, so it took us 1 year to get one house done. We are waiting on the state to finish processing different things, but we do have licensure through DDEP.
Okay, and can you tell us how the licensure would work at this facility? Can it be licensed prior to occupancy, or is it licensed at some point following occupancy?
Either or. A majority of the houses are already up and running because licensure just began last year. So for Savage, it doesn't, there's no stipulation. We already have an existing relationship with them and current license with DDEP. So contacting our rep there and saying, hey, we have a new property. Do you want to take a tour and check it out? Wouldn't be difficult. Does that answer your question?
Yes. And you would then be able to provide proof of that licensure to the township once acquired, is that correct?
Yes, and it's accessible online.
Okay. Section 5 contains a number of different provisions regarding proof that the sober living home has policies, procedures, and regulations that substantially address the following. And I have previously gone through those subsections A and B, which is B 1, 2, 3, and C, which is C 1 and 2, D, E, and F. And are you familiar with all of the requirements that are set forth in the Upper Darby Code?
Yes.
And does your do your facilities now meet these requirements? And will this facility at 142 Springton meet all of the requirements that are set forth here?
Yes.
Right. And can you say, just say generally what these relate to and how they are satisfied without going into detail on each and every one?
They're part of our standard operating procedures, part of our house manager trainings that we implement, and the documentation that each resident undertakes when they come into our program. Everything is initialed, gone over bullet by bullet, and then kept on file. So as far as medications, evictions, transitions into a different treatment facility or housing program, and all of that with like safety and ethics on board is part of all of our documentation, and you can access it at any time.
Okay, and you provide transportation if someone needs transportation away from the facility?
Correct. Ubers or a ride from one of the directors.
Okay. Number 6 says, if permitted by law, supervisory, counseling, and medical services may be provided only to those individuals residing in the sober living home. Do you provide services of any nature to anyone who is not a resident, one of those named residents of the home?
No.
Right. And what type of counseling would be provided in the home or from the home?
So we offer a multitude of options. They can choose all options. They're all free, but we have trauma therapy, DBT, grief therapy, art therapy, Reiki, boxing, yoga. Most of the therapies, if they're talk therapy related, we have private practitioners that do it virtual. So they don't even have to leave their room. It's very convenient for them. And we've partnered with them for several years. We have a local foundation from Pennsylvania that covers the cost of it for several of our residents. The kickboxing, we transport them from the property to the kickboxing studio, and that's for an hour once a week. And for yoga, we have a yoga instructor that comes in-house once a week for an hour and does it in the living room with them.
And when you say virtual counseling, the residents would have some type of Zoom or Microsoft Teams connection with the counselor? Is that how that typically works?
Correct. It's like an encrypted portal that they have to go through because it's therapy, but yes.
And it says sewage and water facilities shall be sufficient, public sewer, public water available at this site?
Yes.
Arrangements for the collection of storage and disposal of solid waste. Can you tell us what the trash policies are?
Well, there's a chore, so the trash is one of the chores. All of the women get a chore that has to be done by 10 a.m. every day, and trash is one of them. So recycling trash goes in a specific area. We have the receptacles for it, and then on a specific time, they're supposed to bring it out to the curb. So that's our trash policy.
Okay, that was number 8 under B.
Okay.
Number 9 relates to fire safety with respect to fire sprinkler system, fire alarm system. Is it your testimony that you would, prior to occupancy, in addition to satisfying all of the other code requirements, satisfy the appropriate officials in Upper Darby Township with regard to compliance with those fire requirements of the code?
Yes.
Number 10 says a sober living home must comply with the building code. I just mentioned that. With regard to size and layout, et cetera, and if requested, provide a dimensional floor plan of each rooms, including sleeping rooms, and identifying the maximum number of residents who will occupy the sleeping rooms, and I think you have testified to that. And then number 11 relates to off-street parking, and I'd like to address this one in a similar fashion to having addressed the minimum lot area requirement. It says off-street parking must be adequate to accommodate the needs of the residents, of staff, and the sober living home. Is it fair to say there are no off-street parking spaces that are available to this lot?
I don't understand.
Okay. Are
Do
you
I
able to-
have
Are you
parking?
able to park any cars on the lot that you purchased?
No, it would have to be on the street.
Okay. And I believe that Springton Road is a one-way street. If you're looking out the front door of this home, the cars would go from left to right in a one-way direction. And there's parking on both sides of Springton Road, is that correct?
Yes.
But that is on-street, not off-street parking. And it says, at a minimum, a sober living home must meet the minimum requirements of the district in which it is located. So if you say, what are the minimum requirements of, and now I'm going to do a little bit of a legal analysis of the parking requirements. If you look at the district is a residential district, and typically there are 2 parking spaces required for each of the each dwelling within the district. Interestingly, the code section says that the parking must meet the minimum requirements of the district, not the minimum requirements for the use. Typically, you think of parking needs to match up to a proposed use. So I think it's fair to say that it was contemplated that you'd meet the minimum parking requirements for residents, which would be 2 parking spaces to which this property is non-conforming. So I would submit that this nonconformity would continue, and that it could be permitted as the continuation of a nonconformity as to parking. And then you say, well, is the parking adequate? And you said there are...
Mr. Fromhold, before you go into the adequate parking, can I just ask a clarifying question? I know there's an alley behind this property. Is there no parking in the alley behind the property?
So there is parking back there, but I'm just going to be, they don't drive, so.
I think that's exactly what your attorney's about to get to, but
Oh.
I'm just asking about the physical that is.
Yeah, and
So there may be a parking spot behind the house is the question, is the answer.
The answer is, I don't know
Yes,
the correct
there's
answer
parking.
to that, because you always have issues with respect to alleys as to what the rights are to park in an alley or to use it for ingress and egress. You have a question as to if you do have a parking space back there, whether it meets the minimum dimensional requirements of the code with respect to parking. So we have approached this.
That I understand. I just think from a practical perspective for the board's benefit, there is possibly one parking spot located in the alley, I guess is what your witness is saying. But Mr. Chast, is there, what is the zoning officer's determination that there is the minimum requirement for parking for this property under the code?
I mean, my understanding is that, right, the minimum required is 2. I see 1 off-street parking.
Okay.
Whether it's existing, non-conforming, that's up to you guys.
Understood. Do you want, Mr. Frumgold, please feel free to move forward into your adequate parking analysis.
Yeah,
Before I cut you off.
I'm sorry. So I think the testimony that has already been provided by Sarah is that there are very few, in terms of percentage, residents who have cars, who drive those cars. And I think in the application that was filed on the second page of that application, there was an indication that currently there are 55 residents at the different facilities, and there are, if my recollection is correct, 8 who have a vehicle. That was on page 2 of the application, which was the first zoning board exhibit. The question was, will the proposed change impact traffic or parking in the surrounding area? And it says, we do not expect to impact traffic or parking. Our current 55 residents throughout our 10 homes, only 8 of them own a vehicle, so parking is not an issue. Was that a correct statement in the application, to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, yeah.
Yeah. And I believe Adam Al-Assad helped prepare this application and sign this application. What is his relationship to you and to Savage Sisters, Inc.?
He's the director of operations.
Okay. Alternatively, the application had sought a variance if and to the extent required as it relates to parking, and in that regard, I would submit it's a dimensional requirement. You get into the question of Hertzberg dimensional use and so forth, but I would submit it's a dimensional requirement and that there is parking on both sides of Springton Road. You'll see in the aerial photograph, there seemed to be ample parking at the time. We didn't do any formal traffic study or parking study to determine what the availability of parking is, but bottom line, there's little, if any, demand for parking as a result of this particular use.
So just to clarify, Ms. Laurel, typically your residents don't drive?
Correct.
Do your house managers drive?
No.
And you stated that for off-site services, Savage Sisters provides transportation to your residents?
We do.
Do you discourage your residents from having private vehicles?
No, but a lot of our residents come in with fines and their licenses are suspended, or they have, stuff. A car is expensive.
So there's no regulation as to whether they can have a car, but typically they do not.
Correct.
Thank you.
The number 12 says it will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or the district which it is located. What's the activity level in and out of the house on a daily basis?
So other than going to and from work and like meetings and scheduled activities, our residents have a curfew, 11 p.m. every night. And it's a part of the rules. They're not allowed to be out on the front porches. I mean, most of our houses are in Philly, so they're not allowed to hang around the front porch, play loud music, or even have the TV on in the living room after 11 p.m. So we have quiet hours. We are very respectful of our neighbors, and on a monthly basis, we do a street cleanup of where all the blocks that we have houses on. So we bring a team of about 30 people in, and we do a neighborhood cleanup. And then we get rid of all of the trash. So we try to remain positive influences within the community and contribute to the community as best as we can.
Okay, and among the regulatory requirements of the state are that you need to maintain in a good, clean condition the exterior of the property as well as the interior of the property. And the state can come in and inspect. Do they come and inspect your facilities?
They have, yes.
Right. And for compliance with all of the requirements. And there is also a provision in the state law and regulations that enables any resident or any person to register a complaint with the state and DDEP, and they are required, it's mandatory that they respond to that requirement. And I have a copy of those regulations. I can provide the solicitor here. They are just part of state law. Then the next requirement, C, says inspections. It says the owner, operator, or agent of the home shall permit annual inspections by Township Code Enforcement Officer. And you would agree to that?
Yes.
Is that correct, right? And registration, it says a sober living home shall register with the township in writing, its location, maximum number of residents, sponsoring agency, you will do that? Is that
Yes.
correct? And it says any other registration of sober living home residents with any state and/or county agency for emergency preparation purposes and to the extent permitted by law shall also be provided to the township, including updates. And you are agreeable to that?
Yes.
Correct? And then proof of licensure, it says if required by state or federal law, all caretakers, administrators, and staff of sober living home must be duly licensed and/or certified by the Department of Public Welfare. Could you tell us what the licensing requirements are for your administrators and staff?
They have to be first aid certified and serve safe. And there's like a new thing that they just added in 2024. Test street-based for bloodborne diseases with a finger prick, so.
Right, and then if the licenses are required, the owner shall provide the township with a register of all the employees and furnish proof of licenses, so you comply with that. And then finally, if this is under E3, if licenses, certification, or clearances are required by state or federal law for every new person employed by a sober living home, the name of the employee along with the proof of the required licenses shall be submitted to the township. So you would comply with all of that. So in summary, and subject to the 2 points that I had addressed with respect to lot area and parking, the facility at 142 Springton Lane Road would comply with all of the requirements for sober living homes under 550-51.1. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
In terms of the general special exception requirements, I think that the testimony that has been offered would address them about the compatibility of this facility with the neighborhood. There is also a requirement in the general standards as to compatibility with the comprehensive plan of Upper Darby Township. I had looked through the entire comprehensive plan, and I really didn't see anything that was specific as to this, other than encouraging collaborative residential uses and occupancy. And I think probably the best evidence of compliance with the comprehensive plan is the recent enactment by Borough Council or by Township Council of the the sober living provisions in the code and the addition of that about 2.5 years ago. So I don't have any other questions of Sarah. If you do, that's fine.
Ms. Handy, do you have any questions for Ms. Laurel about your, at this time?
More so comments. I was here to learn some things about the facility and what was to be expected because as you see, we live in close quarters there. As a longtime resident, I've been here 18 years. I've raised 2 children on that block. So there is a lot of traffic that goes, like children from elementary school on up. So it was a concern of mine. Having small children walking through that block, what was that going to look like? What would that, what would that be like moving forward?
So Ms. Handy, I'm sorry to cut you off. So right now, I would ask that you limit it to questions for Ms. Laurel. If you have statements, I'm going to give you an opportunity to make a statement about your concerns and anything else you'd like to say on the topic. But just for this moment, if you can limit it to questions. Thank you, Ms. Handy. I appreciate it. Questions of the board?
I have a question. Actually, the question goes to Josh. Josh, I seem to recall that there is a space requirement, number of people that can be residing in a property based upon the space that is measured for that property.
It would be whatever is permitted by our building code official, which would probably be out of the 2018 International Residential Code.
And what would that be at this present time?
I do not know, but that would be one of the things that our BCO checks when they put in their application.
My interest in that is trying to ascertain whether 2 people per bedroom is, with that size house is going to qualify.
Well, I think it would depend on the size of the bedroom, but ultimately, right, that would be reviewed by a building code official. And then they would be the final, they would have the final say, right? If you can't have 7, you can't have 7.
Correct.
And the other question was related to the lower floor, the basement.
Mhm.
It looks like that's being, at one point, I think that was a garage in many of those homes, and then was converted to a room, sometimes with or without permits and provisions.
Can I ask a question in that regard? The basement, is there an exit door out the basement so you don't need to go up the basement steps to get out of that level? Is that
There
correct?
appears that there is one from the photo that I've seen.
I think Ms. Laurel, do you have it?
So there is a back door and an exit and it follows along the DDAP protocols for the space being utilized as a bedroom because there is a back exit and there's also a bathroom. And we purchased it renovated. So I don't know what it was before that.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I maybe have mistaken, it's the chairwoman. But with regard to the room size, I don't know the answer to your question, but the room sizes, we do believe comply with the state requirements for minimum room size. Whether that also complies with the local codes, I am not certain. However, I think as the zoning officer has said, that would be a requirement of demonstration of compliance in order to obtain the occupancy permit.
And you'll have all the you already spoke of the sprinkler system, so You'll have the fire codes and you'll have the other things that. you'll
Yeah,
compliance
we would need to, the,
with. Monoxide in the basement.
yeah, that's right. There are a number of code requirements that would need to be met for occupancy. In addition to, the first thing that would need to happen is that they would have zoning approval from the board, a special exception approval. And then, of course, there would be all of the other things that would be triggered in terms of demonstration of code compliance and the licensure from the state.
So first off, I want to thank you guys for your testimony. It's very thorough. And I also just wanted to take the moment before I ask my questions to thank you for your organization and the work that you do. I think it's very important work. But I did have one question, is a clarifying question. I think you guys haven't built any additional rooms into the structure, right? Like you're using existing rooms.
Correct.
And those rooms predominantly probably were bedrooms prior, and you plan on only putting, I'd assume, 2 beds in each, except for the one that has a bunk bed, but it's not unusual for people that have lots of kids, right?
Correct.
Okay, so there's like, it's not an unusual amount of like beds, and they're going into typically what would be traditional bedrooms.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe the state regs do contemplate a bunk bed.
So when it comes to the state regulations and the square footage per room, it's statewide, which we actually had to have several hearings about because the majority of our houses are 1,000 square feet in South Philadelphia row homes. So you can imagine that complying with state square footage regulations was a bit difficult in that kind of home. They did not give us the variance, but we have 2 bedrooms in there. I'm sorry, 2 beds in those. So this space has about 600 more square feet. I can guarantee you it falls in line with DDAP protocols, and the square footage is more than adequate for 2 beds in the room, and also provide documentation of that.
I had a question around, so what's going on at the property now?
Carly is there. She's the house manager in the basement, and we have one resident who just moved in. Her name is Precious, and she came from a treatment facility, and she's already working. So there's 2 individuals there.
Okay. And may I ask why that location? I know, I heard you say earlier, or someone say it's central to public transportation, but I noticed the other locations are in Philadelphia. I just wondered why you came out to the county.
So it wasn't our intention. Delaware County actually reached out to Savage Sisters directly and asked if we wanted to expand our program into Delaware County because of the work that we do in Philadelphia. And part of doing that included opening up 2 houses, 1 male and 1 female. To be quite honest, this is kind of new for me. However, in doing so, we now have a wait list for the house. We understand that there's a need for individuals to be in Delaware County, and we're excited to expand the program that we offer in Philadelphia County to Delaware County. But I will tell you, I'm not doing any more houses. I'm done. But, you know, the majority of the work that we're doing with the opioid settlement funds for Delco is around education and outreach at Chester and 69th Street, trying to get unhoused individuals into low barrier housing and treatment.
And if I may, just real quick, because I did look up the standard, I believe for 2 occupants, there's a minimum of 50 square feet per occupant based on the IPMC. And then a sole 1 occupant is a minimum requirement of 70 square feet. So to put that in perspective, you need 100 square foot room or for 2 residents. 10 by 10 bedroom.
Another question? Sorry, I had another question, but I thought I wrote it down. It must have been lost in my head.
While you think of that, actually, what was just handed up to me, which is The DDAP, Title 28, Health and Safety Standards for Drug and Alcohol Recovery House Licensure. This is beyond the IPMC standards. DDAP requires at least 60 square feet of floor space per resident, measured wall to wall in each shared bedroom, and at least 50 square feet of floor space per resident, measured wall to wall in each shared bedroom with bunk beds. So that meets or exceeds the IPMC standards.
Some nitpicky little things with regards to the information furnished us. They had indicated that you had to have 2 or more people in a room. The lease that you had, or that was presented, states there's only for 1 person. The lease is for 1 person, and the signature date, starting of the lease, was December 1st, 2023, and the ending date was December 8th, 2023.
That's because that was, there's 2 leases for 10B. The reason that we purchased the house was because nobody in Delco would rent to us as Savage Sisters. And then we had the option to purchase it. So the person that owned it during the 1st to the 8th then sold it to us on the 8th, and there is a new lease now. If that, I don't know, I know it's hard to follow, but we had to buy the house so we could house our friends.
That's what I was trying to get squared with it.
Yeah, it's a little tricky, but.
I believe the ending date in paragraph 4 is
It's the 11th,
December 11,
2024. Mhm.
The start date is December 11, 2023. Are we looking at the same thing? Yeah. Is page 207?
No, I didn't get this one. This is what I had.
I looked at the storefront.
That was probably from the application.
Mhm.
Yeah, the application probably had that.
So the lease at A2 is different than the app.
Right.
A2 did not catch that, thank you. Now, the lease that we have attached is currently written lease. The other lease referenced, I think, Haverford Township instead of Upper Darby, we corrected.
Yeah.
Thank
Can I
you.
see that?
Yeah, I did see it.
We also have, the deed provided A1 list. This is the Sarah Laurel deed. Yeah, okay. Sarah Hagan's deed.
Don't say that. No, I'm scared. Don't want people to know my
Just
real.
want to accurately state what's listed on the deed.
No, I hear you.
Trying my best.
And I did have another question. So I noticed in the handout tonight that there were references to Savage Sisters Recovery, Inc. Then it was Savages in Recovery. And so I was wondering, I seen like 3 different names, and then I, of course,
So.
your name.
The nonprofit, the 501c3 is Savage Sisters Recovery, Inc. We just call it Savage Sisters because that's like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
sure.
It's not to like be weird about it. It's Savage Sisters. SIR, the Savages in Recovery, is the name we gave to the male portion of it because calling the men's program Savage Sisters, they were like, we don't like this. So we came up with SIR, Savages in Recovery, SIR. They have the same logo, but they're called the SIR program. It's a subset of Savage. They don't have separate anything. It's the same everything. Just a male name.
And I know you're looking to open up a male location for the men as well. So same guidelines, same everything, same person on site, full-time.
Yeah, everything's exactly the same. The men's program is in Havertown. And we're already working with Havertown Township. We have a hearing. It's a long story. Whoever was in charge just stepped down, so somebody new is stepping in, so we had a change in hands, but we are in the process of dealing with that.
While we have a short break, I'm just going to mark the standards for drug and alcohol recovery house licensure as Exhibit A10. If you don't mind me keeping this, Mr. Fromhold.
No, that's fine.
And-
You have extra copies.
And I'm going to mark what was provided as the business search results for Savage Sisters Recovery, Inc. as A11. Any other board questions for Ms. Laurel? Mr. Fromhold, do you have any other witnesses or evidence to present?
We don't. That concludes our case, and thank you for your attention.
Ms. Handy, this would be your opportunity to come up and make any statements on the record that you would like to make at this time. Do we have your form yet before you start? Sorry. Just want to make sure I never want to forget that.
Thank you.
So as I stated earlier, as a longtime resident of Springton Road, I've been there 18 years. I really came here to learn more than anything because I saw the signs up in the yard and I'm like, okay, I want to go to this meeting, find out what's going on. I did see that the house was recently sold and I just didn't know to who or what was going on. So I came here more to learn what was going on. And that being the case, again, great location. That block is an amazing location if you have small children. Elementary schools right there, middle schools there. All the kids on the block walk to and from school from elementary school on up. So I more so came here to learn to see what that would look like for the block as a whole and as the neighborhood. You know, what Savage Sisters Recovery is all about. So that would be pretty much my statement as a whole. I don't know what that has to do so much with zoning and parking is tight. I don't want to, you know, give the wrong idea. Like if we came down that block right now, there would probably be no parking. I would have to park on an adjacent block. But that would be pretty much my stance and my statement.
Mr. Fromhold, do you have any questions for Ms. Handy?
I don't. With the board's permission, I just wanted to make one final comment at the appropriate time.
Okay, we'll just see if there's any board questions for Ms. Handy. Thank you, Ms. Handy. Public comment would be appropriate.
Is there any public comment?
Can we give-
No, you have to be a resident of Upper Darby, right? You don't?
No, you can give comment.
I'm also the president of Savage Sisters.
So if you can just,
Mary Nolan. Nolan.
and yes, please.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. So all I wanted to say, and this is really late, I know, it's time to go. I just think, I've read everything in the Upper Darby 360 code, you know, and when we were going over this application, I talked to a couple of our directors and I was like, you know what, let's call Josh and ask him, you know, when other sober living groups have applied, you know, what were the hurdles? So that we can just make sure that we take care of them before. And Josh said, no one has ever applied. So I imagine that we are the first. And in knowing what made Sarah found this organization and what we see in other sober living organizations, I definitely am prejudiced, but I think we are the very best sober living organization that I have ever heard of, with the most supports. And I love our residents. They love me. They call me Mother Mary. You can call me for anything that you need a mother for, and she's not around, and I will come. I just think that
as far as there ever being a sober living home in this township, there's nothing better than Savage. That's all.
Mr. Fromhold?
Yeah,
would you like
thank
to-
you. And I was just going to note very briefly, I believe on the Savage Sisters website, there is a provision or a statement that says if you have any complaints about our facilities, where to call Savage Sisters. And as I said earlier, in the regulations themselves, section 717.32, there are provisions where if an individual has some complaint, of any nature about any of these facilities, that they can make them to the department, and the department will investigate. So I think they're good protections that have been built in to the state laws and regulations, and certainly they're being followed by Savage Sisters.
Sir? With regards to that, when they set up these rules and regulations that you have followed, what is the, I'll call it, the stick when you have to administer or identify a problem? How do you resolve it? How do you improve it?
Well, and Sarah would be in a better position based on experience to testify what it is that they do. My conversations with them, there have been very few complaints with regard to any of the facilities. But their licenses are ultimately at issue if you don't resolve complaints. So, and let me say, it could be that somebody sees some trash outside. That is one of the requirements, that they keep the outside clean. So there is real recourse and oversight on these facilities. So I think that's a good thing for the public.
I just thought of a question, and I don't know if it'd be posed to Sarah. How long are people in your program for? I don't recall hearing, like, the duration, does it vary?
It does vary. So we like to give our friends the autonomy to choose how long. Some individuals don't need as much time. We recommend a year and then moving on. However, depending on individuals, we actually have 3 residents out of the 55 who've been there for 2 years. And they're getting ready to move on. In that time, they were able to reconnect with their children through CYS, and they have a lot of other hurdles. So having that extra structure and support for an additional time frame was helpful for them. But the majority of individuals stay for about a year. Also, we've never had any complaints. We just don't listen. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't put that out.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve this application.
Second.
Third.
One question though. We have a special exception to approve. Sorry. We have a special exception to approve, but there's a determination as to whether parking is non-conforming, or if you'd like to grant the variance to allow them to permit less than the required amount of off-street parking as part of the use.
Can I feel like in this specific case, since we're dealing with a sober living home, I feel like granting a variance makes the most sense.
For that specific set of circumstances.
Yes, for the specific set of circumstances. Yep.
So are you suggesting a condition that the variance is tied to the use of the property as a sober living facility? Okay.
That. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Awesome. Congratulations.
There we are.
Welcome to Delaware County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a few seconds afterward?
Josh, thanks.
Make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Sec,